I'd like to call to order the June 19, 2012 meeting of the Buncombe County Commission, and we will start with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'll recognize Commissioner Peterson to do our invocation tonight.
If you will pray with me, please. Our dear Heavenly Father, we come this afternoon with grateful hearts. We come this afternoon to pray for each citizen who resides in Buncombe County, whether they reside in Black Mountain or Barnardsville, in Arden or Asheville, in Candler or Cane Creek, Swannanoa or Shiloh, Woodfin or Weaverville, Red Oak or Reynolds. We're here to pray for each one of these folks. We're here to pray especially tonight for the folks who get up every day to do the work of Buncombe County. I'm talking about Buncombe County employees and the great job that they do and the great debt of gratitude we owe to them for the work that they do every day with the good of the citizens of Buncombe County in their heart. We pray that your commissioners will make the best decisions tonight that they can make, and we ask you that we all do this with the grace of God in our hearts. We ask all these things in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by this board, it's the duty of every board member to avoid both actual and apparent conflicts of interest. Does any board member know of any known or potential conflict of interest with respect to any matter coming before us today?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Not. We'll proceed. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as it's been published, which includes adopting the consent agenda items?
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion by Commissioner Peterson, a second by Vice Chair Stanley. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We will follow the agenda by 5-0 vote. Next up, we have a public hearing on the acquisition of the building at 93 Victoria Road. We'll be presented with a resolution approving the purchase of this property for use by AB Tech, and we have our county attorney, Mr. Michael Frew, to talk about us. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This piece of property, 93 Victoria Road, was on the list as requested by AB Tech in advance of the 1/4 cent sales tax resolution. We're here today because we have the property at 93 Victoria under contract for a good price, and this is a necessary statutory step to have a public hearing to approve that sale. The sales price under contract is $2,389,758. All parties agree that that's a very good deal and well below the market price. And there has already been a reimbursement resolution in place, so the 1/4 cent sales tax should reimburse this as we go forward. So I would urge the approval of this resolution.
All righty. Are there any questions for Mr. Frew before we start our public hearing? All righty. In that case, we'll get started. I have 434. Does any member of the public wish to be heard on this acquisition of this property? And we'll hear you for 3 minutes. Mr. Yelton?
Since we can't ask a question and get an answer, I have to ask a question and then ask another question, which will be based upon the answer to the first question. And the question is the existing building going to be used? Because if it's not, it does not fit with your plan of sustainability, which says you're supposed to use existing structures. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yelton. Any other comments tonight? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Landis?
Reverend Lisa Landis, my question is, you have one that says it's almost 2 acres, and then you have one that says it's 1.447 acre. And the price sounds a little bit high to me. And with what Don was saying about a building, I'm questioning as to why it has to be this piece of property for this price.
Thank you, Ms. Landis. Any other comments tonight? Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'd just like to wonder, in my mind, why we're even buying 93 Victoria Road. We've got 6,000 square feet of AB Tech in one location, and we got another 6,000 in another location. It sounds like Mission Hospital to me, buying up everything. So I just wonder why AB Tech is wanting this piece of property. It looks to me like we got enough property at Inca to do anything anybody would want to do. And why we'd want that piece of property is something I think should be questioned very thoroughly and not just thrown out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Any other public comment or questions today? If not, I will declare the public hearing closed at 4:40 p.m. Mr. Frew, I think there are several questions. Existing building to be used, question about the valuation, and question about why not use Inca property or some other, what's special about this particular property?
I am not the expert on the programming needs and how the transition is going to be made between today and the construction Allied Health and the renovation of the other buildings at AB Tech and the Inca campus, but this will be part of the renovation, part of the programming, the shifting of staff and students around the campus as the construction progress goes. I am working with Chris Campbell, college attorney, on a lease agreement to use that property long-term as part of the construction effort, and at the end of that term, we would sell it for a very nominal price to the college, and that'd be after the construction schedule, and maybe at the end of the whole bond referendum, which would be the 17 years. I think Ms. Landis's question had to do with, there is an indication in there, there's 3 properties which will be used as we continue with the project and have the security for the loans and for the construction. There's the property at the Inca campus, there's the property, the 22 acres there where the Allied Health building is going to be, and this property at 93 Victoria. All 3 of those property will be used as the security for borrowing and for the construction. But we're just talking about the acquisition of the one property, but one of the whereases was the memorandum of understanding between the county and the college to proceed with this project.
And this is part of their overall plan.
Oh, yes,
Of course,
absolutely.
they have many committees, many folks that have looked at this and have a plan, and this is part of what they say they need to make it all happen, which is what the people of Buncombe County voted for in the sales bond referendum. Is that right?
Yes, and it was part of the stated intended uses of the quarter-cent tax revenue to acquire this building as part of that master plan.
Okay. All righty. Any other questions for Mr. Frew or any other comments? Okay. Entertain a motion for the resolution.
So move.
Second.
Been a motion by Commissioner Peterson, a second by Vice Chair Stanley to approve the resolution to purchase the 93 Victoria Road property for use by AB Tech Community College. Is there any other discussion or any other comments? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the resolution proposed by Commissioner Peterson and Vice Chair Stanley, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The resolution is adopted by a 5-0 vote. Next up, we have the county manager report. We have Mrs. Donna Clark here to talk about our bond situation.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, it is my pleasure to once again tell you that on June 8th, 2012, Standard & Poor's Rating Services raised its long-term rating on Buncombe County, North Carolina's debt to AAA. Buncombe County is now the 6th county in North Carolina to be rated claiming AAA, and we claim our rightful seat among our peers. Those are Mecklenburg, Forsyth, Wake, New Hanover, and Durham. The majority of other states have only 1 or 2, and some states have no AAAs. Since 1994, our bond rating has increased 3 notches, and 2 of those upgrades came at a time that it was difficult to receive those upgrades. Many of the headlines were reading, "Outlook for U.S. local governments remains negative," but ours didn't. So what does a AAA mean? Well, very broadly, it means that the issuer is able to withstand extreme levels of stress and can meet its financial obligations. And when they define extreme level of stress, it means that a AAA-rated issuer could hold up under stress like was experienced in the Great Depression, where there was a widespread collapse of consumer confidence, the financial system was suffering major disorder, and economic decline was spreading around the globe. Does it sound familiar? Specifically, a AAA means, for our community, that our bonds will trade approximately 5 basis points better or lower in yield than a AA credit, and it means that we will enjoy lower interest rates than about 99% of others in the market when we are. A lower rate means a lower cost of capital or debt interest payments. Conservative estimates for this current issue alone saves the county in excess of $500,000. A AAA will have to be a selling point as we recruit potential new employers. Our county is governed well by a board that sets good policy, and it's managed well with practices that are strong, well embedded, and sustainable. Those aren't my words. Those are the words from the rating agency. The county bond rating is a positive reflection for not only the municipalities within our county, but for our entire region. And I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity, since I have the mic, on behalf of the team that traveled to New York that got to meet with the rating analysts. We would like to thank every employee of this county whose work, excellent work every day, contributed to this milestone in county's history. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. But
I have one. When was the last time a county got upgraded in these economic conditions? Do you know?
Good question, but I know there are more downgrades in this type of economy than there are upgrades. So.
I had heard the number 15 years. Does anybody know? I don't want to say that off the top of my head, but I'd heard that somewhere.
It's been that long since we had a new AAA in North Carolina.
Okay, so it's been 15 years since any North Carolina county was upgraded to AAA, then we can say that. Okay.
So do we get rated by Moody's as well? So is that right? Is it right on its heels?
I think it is right on its heels. And I say that because, I think a meeting or two ago, we said, this is probably as high as we'll ever go. And then we get AAA. So Moody's had, what makes me hopeful is they had a sentence in theirs that says, the county's ability to maintain consistently strong operating results and solid fund balance levels may differentiate the county from similarly rated credits in the context of the current recession and could positively impact future rating reviews. So yes, we are hopeful.
Great.
The day after we received the Standard & Poor's report, I said, Wanda, we have to work on Moody's. And she said, Donna, just enjoy this one for a day. So we are excited for you and for the county. Thank you.
But they gave us positive outlook or whatever that term is, didn't it? Big
Yes.
time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Great news. Next up, we'll have a discussion of the fiscal year 2013 budget. And we have Dr. Wanda Green to lead us off.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I always say this is my favorite part of the budget because we're really close to adoption. As a summary tonight, we have 4 parts to our presentation. I really appreciate your saving your questions till the end of the entire presentation. And if Judy will put up the PowerPoint, we'll summarize what's actually in the highlights of the budget. This is our fiscal year 13 budget. It will begin on July the 1st. Oh, yeah. I have the clicker. The budget totals $337,002,657. It is up about 1% over the 2012 budget, and it is down a little from where we presented it to you in mid-May. The budget includes a general fund of $266,185,416. The general fund is the fund in the county that uses property tax or receives the property tax. There's a lot of shifting in this budget, even though we had a 1% just change from last year. We had several things we had to work through and accommodate. We had some cut in their federal funding, and they increased the percentage we had to pay. We are paying an incentive to Linamar for their 400 new jobs and $125 million investment. This is an election year, and we do have a runoff in July, so and no funding source. In odd years, we have revenue in that department, but in even years, we do not. We are doing a reappraisal that is underway as we talk. The federal government is also requiring us to narrow band our radio system, and we're making wonderful progress on that. It did require us to add some new towers and some new maintenance to go with that. The Civic Center improvements are our second year of a 3-year payment to the city to help improve the Civic Center. And we have some fuel and utility cost increases just based on the fact that fuel costs went up this year. We built this budget using our existing 52.5-cent tax rate. And we have, today, we're operating with a workforce that is smaller than it was two decades ago. We've done that with a lot of different ways. There was a point when we did a lot of department cuts and hiring freezes. We've done a lot of smart partnerships, and our technology improvements have just been, that has given us the ability to do a whole lot more and carry heavier caseloads. With this budget, you also set other tax rates. One of those is the Asheville City School System. That tax rate would be 15 cents in this budget, and that's unchanged from 2012. You set the tax rates for a number of fire districts, and those range from 7.5 to 15 cents. Fairview did request an increase from 7.5 to 9 cents in their tax rate. And if you wish to do that, it will take a motion from this board later tonight to adjust that rate upward. Our education funding remains the same as it did in 2012 for AB Tech and our K-12. The ADM, the average daily membership shift between county and city schools, may change the split, but the entire pot stays the same for K-12. And this budget includes a fund balance appropriation of $7,933,447. That is down from what we brought you in May by about $400,000. There have been a number of issues raised, and we work really hard to have a sustainable compensation plan that lets us recruit and retain employees. Over the years, we've made comprehensive changes to the plan. One example is the tiered approach we've used to longevity. I'd like to show you how that has progressed from the time we put in the second tier in July of 2006. We had 1,577 employees the day that you adopted the second tier. With our smart partnerships, we have reduced our staff by 152 people. We've also reduced our temporaries by 248, which is not on the graph. We have, in Tier 2 and 3, we have 613 employees. And in Tier 1, when I put this graph together, we had 812. With the retirement list this morning, that drops to 802. So we are making great progress in a 6-year period. We are almost half the staff is all that remains on Tier 1. It is a process that's used by the other counties. We pulled all their ordinances to read them, and it's the same process that they are using. Judy, you can take the PowerPoint down. As an organization, we've grown and we've changed significantly over the years. Tonight, I've asked Clint Gorman to share some of his 30-plus year history on how we've grown as a workforce, the challenges we've faced, and the concerns the workforce has at this time. So I'll turn that over to Clint.
Thank you, Wanda. Mr. Chairman, I don't have a visual presentation to go along with this, but there are a number of county employees in the room. With your permission, I'd like to ask those folks to lift a hand so that you folks can see where we are. Thank you. Thank you for a few minutes of your time today, allowing me to discuss in person something very important to me and my coworkers, that being longevity as a part of our overall compensation package. A couple of months ago, I celebrated my 30-year anniversary as a Buncombe County employee. I've seen a lot in those 30 years. Every time I hear Jackson Brown's song, "Doctor My Eyes," I think about some of the tragedy I witnessed during the time I was at EMS. Tragedy that our EMS folks still see every day. I've also seen a lot of changes in our compensation package. In the early years of my career, I saw cost of living increases that would be eaten up by health insurance premium increases. It was not uncommon to get a cost of living increase that was completely taken by a health insurance increase and then some, with a net loss of $15 or $20 in a paycheck after the increase went into effect. That happened more than once, and it happened not during tough economic times. It was during that same time period when we received a certificate for a frozen bilo turkey as a Christmas bonus. One of my friends at EMS took his frozen turkey to the tax office to pay his property taxes. That was not humorous to the bosses, but then I don't think it was intended to be. We couldn't buy eggs, bacon, or diapers, or a Butterball turkey with that certificate, only the frozen store brand. It wasn't that long ago that I saw ambulances sitting unstaffed in their stations. They weren't unstaffed because our citizens didn't need a ride in them. They were unstaffed because we didn't have the people to work. We would advertise for months for paramedics. When we would get an applicant or two, they would either be from a person who did not have a paramedic certification or had been recently fired from another county. And yes, we bent the rules a time or two to hire people we knew wouldn't last, but we did at least get a few months out of them. That's not something we wanted to do, but something we had to do in order to provide even the lowest level of service. If not for Dee Robertson, one of the veteran employees at EMS, with the help of some of the executive leadership folks in this very room today, we would still be seeing those idle ambulances sitting there. Those folks spent a lot of time studying and researching to develop a competitive pay package to attract paramedics, and it worked. There are important details about our longevity pay that I want you to please keep in mind. Back in the day, which is one of my favorite sayings, our pay scales were unorganized at best. It wasn't uncommon to find a group of people working in the same position with similar experience and qualifications, but with wildly different pay levels. A study suggested we do same position, same pay, which placed people in same positions at the same level of pay. That means two people, one with 2 years' experience, sitting next to someone doing the same job with 20 years' experience, makes the same amount of base pay. The longevity program rewards the 20-year person with extra pay. Without longevity, the pay is the same, and it remains flat for the duration of the career. Longevity is a 3-tier system. That's due primarily to the tough economy and everyone's efforts to balance the budget. Over 800 of our benefited employees, over half, are in the original tier. We're in that original tier because we were here when it started. We would have only that original tier had the economy not slipped. Over 400 people are in the middle tier. The middle tier came about when the economy began to tank. It was an effort to maintain a longevity program because of longevity's importance in the overall compensation package, even when the future appeared uncertain. The newest, most recent tier has just over 100 employees in it. This tier was developed in response to continued tightening and even worse economic times. Again, the tiers occurred as a result of efforts to maintain a semblance of longevity because it is a vital part of the larger package. If you do nothing, the tiers will phase out through attrition. But with longevity being so important, we would like to see you bring the other tiers up to the original level as the economy improves and revenue permits that in the coming years. For people like me looking toward retirement, losing longevity has lifelong effects. Our state pension is based on average compensation, and longevity is included in that calculation. Reducing average compensation reduces our pension for the rest of our lives. Longevity is not a bonus. It's part of our annual compensation. At my house, we use that end-of-the-year check to buy Christmas presents, pay car insurance, pay college expenses for our sons, and give to local charity at Christmas time. I've appeared in front of the commissioners many times over my 30 years. I'm usually here touting the latest innovation to improve service or reduce cost or both. I've been here several times to be recognized as part of a talented team of people who've won an award or to receive official commendation. I don't remember a time when county employees have come to this board to defend compensation. But then again, I don't remember a time when the local media has essentially accused us of stealing the last dollar from some poor citizen's purse. These are the people we are accused of taking money from, and they are the people that we serve every day. We serve these people and others with commitment, with professionalism, and with pride. Any comment to the contrary is an insult. When you compliment us publicly, we work harder to be worthy of your pride and praise. When you kick us to the curb, we have to look harder for reasons to continue. That's human nature. In the last 10 years, population has increased. The economy has soured and state money is all but dried up. In that same period of time, because of tough times, people in this county have needed more county services more often, and we're providing those services with fewer county employees. Buncombe County has not only financially survived the toughest economy since the Great Depression, we've earned a AAA bond rating in the process. Friends, we didn't get to this point in this great place or this great organization with warm bodies sitting around waiting for instruction. We got here through innovation and hard work of dedicated, smart, experienced workforce and leadership such as yourselves. Come over to information technology. See how talented people are harnessing technology to save time and improve efficiency. Go to physical facilities. See how they are building, renovating, and maintaining buildings to be as efficient as possible, reducing our carbon footprint to save money and save the planet. The folks at EMS are using expensive ambulances and expensive equipment to help real people. When they go to a wreck or a heart attack, we don't need warm bodies using that stuff. We need people who are highly qualified, smart, and experienced. When a social worker is investigating the abuse of a child, we don't need someone who will cut corners or miss subtle hints. We need someone who has been there before, seen this before, and stopped abuse before. It would be nice if all of our deputies could work their entire careers without drawing their guns, but we know that's not reality. The true reality check is that when a deputy needs to use lethal force, we need him or her to be not just any warm body, but someone who has demonstrated an ability to make quick decisions accurately and appropriately. In every department, every day, we need smart, capable, experienced people. Our taxpayers deserve that. We won't have that for long if our compensation is continually at risk and our workforce is accused of being uncommitted. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for giving us the tools that we need to do our jobs well. To the members of this board now and members of the past who have undyingly supported us to the end, thank you for that. But most of all, thank you for your service to the people of Buncombe County. We take serving the people here very seriously, and we'd like to continue that culture for a very long time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clint. As we plan for our future and make changes based on our changing workforce, Lisa Eby has been researching and working with a consultant around compensation issues and would like to share our strategy and context with you.
Okay, well, that is not the right person to have to follow. Thank you, Clint. I think you speak for a lot of the 1,400 employees in Buncombe County. So the last time I was here in January, I did report on the salary and compensation study for Health and Human Services. And as a follow-up to that, Wanda asked me to do what I love to do, which is to immerse myself in the literature and best practice about how you design a compensation and pay plan that best supports the workforce that you want to create. So I have been steeped in this research and best practice, working with consultants, working with Rob Thornberry, our HR director, as well as department heads who've held recruitment and retention forums. We have some proposals sketched in, and we plan to get staff input on these proposals in July, and I hope to come back to you in August with a plan for you to review and with recommendations on how we might tweak the plan that we currently have to meet the diverse needs of our workforce and to also deal with the current economic environment that we're working in. As many of you have heard me say, and as you heard Clint so eloquently say, our capital in Buncombe County is our employees. They're the engine that runs and fuels our organization in our county. And although this focus on this presentation is going to be centered on the employees and the compensation and pay package, at the end of the day, every person working for Buncombe County, their ultimate goal is to have a professional workforce that provides the efficient and effective service to our county residents. So if you know me, you know I always think a little squirrely, so this photograph to me represents the role of a strong compensation philosophy. So what do I mean by that? Our challenge is to harness employee energy and talent in a way that best serves the mission of our agency. And if we think about our employees, you can envision their energy and talent as this vast and deep wave. And our job as an agency is to effectively harness that energy. Much like the surfer on the surfboard, we have to find that sweet spot in the water that carefully balances competing needs and goals in a way that effectively allows us to use that energy to serve our citizens. Surfers don't get up on a board and just stand still. They're constantly responding to the wave and shifting their balance and movement on the board in order to be in sync with that wave. Likewise, we have to do the same thing with the compensation and pay package. So I'd like you to keep that image in your mind as we kind of go through our package today and our approach. As we back up the lens and we think about Buncombe County, one of the concepts that I've recently embraced and I think is very useful is that Buncombe County is an anchor institution. We are an agency whose roots are deeply rooted in the community. Our anchor institutions use those roots and resources to spread them throughout the community, creating support structures that stimulate growth in the community, and they also do this through the services provided by their employees. As Clint said, every time a medic goes to a call, a deputy answers a domestic violence call, a social worker checks in on an elderly person living alone, these are, again, the deep roots that spread throughout this community that keep us vital and keep us safe and healthy. Anchor institutions, they shape the brand of a community through the careful investment of their capital in ways that lead to increased desirability and enhancement of the community. They affect the local economy at a minimum through the employment, and they leverage their role to stimulate and support a sustainable community through a workforce plan that contributes to a sustainable wage and the health and well-being of our workforce in the community. Last Commissioners meeting, you all talked about your sustainability plan and the commitment in Buncombe County toward a sustainable living wage. And again, as an employer in this area with 1,400 employees, you can be a leader in modeling best practice. The compensation philosophy that we have is built on these 5 guiding principles. We want a base pay that contributes to economic security for our employees. We have single parents working with children, and we want them to be able to have a sustainable living wage. We want our employees to have access to affordable health insurance and wellness programs. We want them to be healthy, and we want them to model that health as they are out in the community doing the work. We want contributions toward a sound retirement plan so that our employees, when they retire, don't suffer from financial insecurity. We want benefits that reward longevity and the mastery of a position. And we want practices that support an effective and flexible workplace, one that meets the needs of our citizen but also supports our workers. How we translate this philosophy is determined by dynamic factors. Like the surfer on the wave, we have to weigh the economy, the hiring environment, budget constraints, and we have to make decisions based on all of these when we implement a compensation philosophy. As Wanda said, the pie's not getting bigger. We've held the tax rate flat since fiscal year '08, I believe, and we have to learn to work within that pie. We have to learn how to divvy it up in ways that benefit our workforce and benefit our community. We have done a lot of intentional shaping of our workforce over the years, and this graph is meant to illustrate it. Wanda referred to it earlier, but the population of Buncombe County has grown. It shows you from the far left fiscal year '93, when our population was 181,500 roughly, to its current level of almost 250,000. So we've increased in our population, and if we had continued with the staffing levels that we'd had, we would have be up to almost 2,000 employees at this point in time, given our population base. But in fact, the opposite has occurred. As Wanda showed you, we've actually decreased the number of employees that we have, resulting in a difference of 522 positions from what we would have projected if we hadn't trimmed our workforce. So we have a lean workforce, and we maintain that lean workforce in different ways. We've shaped it so that we've gotten rid of the upper layers of management, and we've really pushed down the workforce to provide direct services, and this graph illustrates that. From the time that we started collecting this information in fiscal year 2004, our workforce was approximately 25% had management and professional positions, and we have trimmed that down to the current level of 19%. That's a reduction of 126 positions in management. What does that mean? It means that we're able to take those positions and reallocate them to the front line so that, once again, the needs of our citizens are being met. What it does mean that people like me, we tend to wear multiple hats when we are in management because there aren't enough of us to go around, but we continue to do the work. So we've had this intentional adjustment, like the surfer on the board, over time. This is just a sampling of some of those. In 2001, we eliminated all assistant director positions in the departments. As Clint talked about and Wanda, we went through a different, the downturn in the economy, and also this was in 2005 and 2006, which was just the beginning parts of that. But it was also a time when we were very worried about the pending bubble of retirements. The workforce in county government was aging, and all the literature said we were going to have this tsunami wave of people exiting from county government, and so we worked to adjust our compensation pay to put positive pressure to keep people. We've done other things such as moving to the 40-hour work week. We went from 37 and a half hours to 40 hours, having the workers that we did have do more work. This translated into a savings of 90 more positions. So we've been very targeted and specific, and we've had to make difficult decisions, like Clint said, when the economy is tanked. And it hasn't always been the decision that we would want to make in a perfect world, but they've been decisions that we've made based on the pie that we're dealing with. The result is that we have an organization that is leaner, it's flatter, less hierarchy, and it's designed to attract, motivate, and retain high performers. With fewer employees, we cannot afford to have any employee who's not pulling their weight. We must maintain a workforce that is one that is high performance and accountable. So you do this in large part through an effective compensation and benefit plan. And I picked this picture because I think how you design a compensation and benefit plan is through the careful weaving of a menu of options, starting with a clear vision of what you want to accomplish, and then making sure you weave an appropriate mix of these options that support your goals for the type of workforce that you need and want. If you start to pull out individual strings and look at them in isolation, and you don't do it in concert with the other aspects of the plan, it can unravel the purpose and objective of your plan and have unintended consequences. At the last commissioner meeting, Commissioner Jones, I think, said very well that we are often in a position where we have to choose between competing interests, and that can be difficult. With a limited financial pie, we need to weigh decisions within the context of what resources we have available, what we value, what we're trying to accomplish, and what best serves the needs of our community. We talked at the last commissioner meeting about capping longevity and adjusting the waiting period for health insurance. When we consider longevity, we need to think about the services we provide and what it takes to provide them. I think all of us would agree, and as Clint said, when we get in a car wreck, we want a seasoned, well-trained medic answering that phone call. So the question is, what factors can we use to continue to apply positive pressure to keep employees over the course of a career, especially given this flattened organization that we had with those limited opportunities for advancement? And we need to consider in our evaluation, what are the costs, both the hidden costs and the obvious costs, as we propose adjustments. Capping longevity may sound like a good idea, but if it results in higher turnover, then it may not be money saved in the long run. Likewise, if we're looking at the pros and cons of a 90 waiting day period for health insurance or a 30-day waiting period, we have to examine these options within the context of what we're trying to accomplish, and again, those obvious and hidden costs. We know, given our competitive hiring rate, that we can attract and hire applicants. Decreasing the waiting period may be the right thing to do from a value perspective, and I understand Commissioner Jones's perspective on that, but does it make good business sense? Waiting periods for benefits are actually extensions of the interview process. It's the time we use to see if this employee is going to be a good fit for the position. Is a 90-day waiting period a hardship? Currently, we allow new employees and their families to begin day one using our employee health clinic at no cost, well, the $5 copay, essentially at no cost. Is that benefit enough? Does the waiting period detract applicants from coming to our county? How much will each of these proposals cost? And what is the return on our investment? These are all the questions that we have to ask as we weigh the pros and cons of any changes in our compensation and benefit plan. It gets back to the pie. You got to do it within the given pie that you have, and do it in a way that accomplishes the goals that you're trying to do with your workforce. So as I've been studying and researching and talking with experts in the field, the factors that I've looked at and that have been identified that we need to consider are the demographics of our hiring environment. Who are our competitors? We've been in a deep recession, and we are beginning to see an upswing. So things are changing, and we know we compete with the other 99 counties for those skilled and experienced workers. So how can we remain competitive as we go forward out of this recession in a way that continues to attract new employees? We also have to look at the diverse needs of our workforce and the multiple generations that are currently working. We need to have leave and benefit plans that support these workers and allow us, again, to provide service to our citizens in a way that's effective. Financial health of our county always has to be factored in as we're making these decisions. And then we need to look at the workforce pressures that currently exist, our difficulty or ease of filling vacancies, retirements, aging workforce, and all these other factors. In addition to these nuts and bolts about compensation and pay, there's another factor. When we say we want a capable and invested workforce, we need to think about how do you harness that energy and power in a way that was illustrated on that first slide. Daniel Pink is a leading expert in this area, and he says that we need to consider who we are as an agency. County government employees, like teachers, are people who are drawn to this profession, who have the heart and the passion to do the work. They do this work because it has purpose for them and meaning. Daniel Pink says that if you want to motivate and engage staff, then you need to have this compelling purpose. You need a work environment that allows for autonomy, and one that also is conducive for continued development and mastery of a position. These are the key factors in developing a capable and engaged workforce. Pink has also studied what motivates people and tackled the issue of merit pay. He did this because of the many states that have advocated for merit pay for teachers. But what Pink found was that merit pay did not work in the public sector. Public servants do the work they do because they are fueled by the work that creates meaning. He makes that point that a stockbroker's rewarded for being competitive, and in that environment, merit pay works fabulously. But in a county government environment, that type of incentive is actually counterproductive, and it undermines the team process. His solution for government workers is to raise the base pay and make it easier to get rid of underperformers. And when I reported out to you in January, I told you that's exactly what we're doing. We have raised base pay, and we doggedly track underperformers and move them on. And we do that through the performance management systems that we have. Again, we have a lean workforce. We can't afford to carry any dead weight with that workforce. Pink also recommends some non-gameable variable pay. And based on his research, we will be bringing forth some recommendations for some versions of this in August for you to review and evaluate. Bottom line, the work that I'm doing in concert with Rob Thornberry and HR is to look at how do we create a compensation and pay benefit that creates high performance. We keep our best, we move on our poor performers, and we ultimately serve the needs of people in Buncombe County. So that's all I have for right now. I look forward to reporting back to you in August, and I think we'll take questions at the end. Is that what we're going to do? Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, as we run the county, we are mindful of our mission. We're thoughtful about our physical, social, and work environment, and we consider yesterday, today, and tomorrow in our planning. We're also comprehensive with our compensation package, with the budgets we prepare and execute, with the services we provide, and with the equipment and facilities we acquire. But most of all, we're blessed to have a quality workforce of dedicated public servants. They're firm, they're fair, and they're compassionate, and they're called to serve. They're experts in their field. They have the knowledge and wisdom to manage current needs, and the commitment and vision to identify emerging needs and address them early. They're creative in finding the most effective and efficient processes. They serve our citizens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They are the reason we've been successful in holding the tax rate while we navigate a very serious recession with major caseload increases. I'm very proud of our workforce, and I'm really honored to be a member of that team. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, you have for your consideration the 2013 budget. And we're happy to answer any questions you have.
All righty. Thank you. I think let's do questions first and then have comments, and then we'll see where we're at. Any questions from the commission?
Yeah, I've got a few. So, I guess first of all, it's just a lot. I think really good news to learn about the commission study, because I read the direction of that work differently, but I'm glad to know that that's coming forward. So my first question is, will in the sense of searching for best practices, will we also look at comparables across other counties and other, or we just, which is, I want to affirm, I feel like I've got to just say yay on everything, but I'm trying to be cognizant of everybody's time too. So is it just about best practices, or is it also about looking at the comparable piece of that?
It's all of that, really. We're continuing to look at salary across the county. We're looking at the pay and benefits that we have for different employees under the different hiring tiers that we've brought them in. I think we're working from a practice of those 5 guiding principles and trying to ensure that we have a workforce pay and benefit package that supports the workforce, doesn't lead to increased turnover, and gets us a good return on our investment. So we will be looking at other counties. We've already done a lot of that work. I think, as you know, from discussions we've had, and I think some of the research you've done as well, it's very difficult to compare county to county to county. Some counties have merit pay, some counties don't. So we will provide some basic information on that, but I think at some level we have to work within the budget that we're given and the compensation package that we're budgeted to have for our employees. I don't know if that answers your question, or if you want to add anything to that, Wanda.
I mean, what I don't want to see happen is what happened back in February, and kind of be, and I was surprised because I had certain expectations, and I just want to put my expectations out there in the front end this time, and to not be feel like I can't ask questions. And that's the sad part that I'm going to address in a minute, that there's this I don't know, to be able to ask smart, important questions about our taxpayers' money feels like somehow or another that is attacking employees, and we have got to grow through that. I mean, we just saw in California what not dealing with the pressures, what happens, and we have the ability to have a very mature and sophisticated conversation that is not judgmental about people's different perspectives, but we get to that right place, and we look at that little teeter-totter. So anyway, I'm just trying to be very straightforward about part of what I need to understand around the data, and one facet of it. It's not the only facet. The best practices is a big piece of it. But the other part is the comps with comparable counties. So that's a big deal to me. I don't really want to go too much into, because it looks like that it's kind of a funny time to ask questions about this, because the studies come in, the table's kind of set. So maybe I'll just make a couple of comments and wait for the report, because I think it was a nice presentation. I think in the future, any type of presentation like that we can get beforehand to kind of be able to do the work of the citizens and try to grapple with the meaning there, that's really helpful for me to do my job as a public servant. So it's hard to react, on camera in front of people that, have angst, and so anyway, just in the future, we can try to do that.
And
So.
attached to the agenda was a summary on compensation and how you put a compensation plan together.
Yeah, that was very, very good, and I appreciate that. But there was some really interesting, intriguing ideas around anchor institution, which is the first comment that I want to make, because I firmly believe that we are an anchor institution. And in part, I go back to that health insurance issue as the public health institution in this community. We should be trying to strive for all our employers to have that type of level of waiting period. And that is I feel, part and parcel of being that anchor institution. And in terms of it being a business, issue, the businesses I queried, more had 30 than 90. I mean, there was a handful that had 90, but some of our largest employers have 30. So I think there's room there. And I don't think it will bust the bank either. So, and I'll be happy to work and be understanding more of numbers than I am right now with just partial information for sure. But so I love that idea of an anchor institution, and I want to be part of that. But I also think for public health reasons, a waiting period of 30 days needs to be our standard, and so I'm continue to going to advocate that till they put me in the grave, or kick me off this platform. So that's one thing I want to say, and the other thing that I want to say, and I was happy to hear about the request from Clint around the request from the other employees, because my sense is that so many of the things that were listed about how y'all have moved and grooved through some really stressful times, they do not go unrecognized by me. They do not. But I also don't waive my right to ask questions. But my concern around all that is to applaud the many aspects of it. But one big problem that I will continue to have is that to do manage that cost has primarily been on the weight of the future. And we've got two different health insurance options, that the buy-up plan is not even available for the new folks. We call it a buy-up, but it costs more and you get less. It's great. It's a great plan. But so that's one way we've managed costs. I'm happy about the managed costs, but the same thing goes with the longevity. The same thing goes with the annual leave. And so my concern is that I want to be supportive of these great management, the spotting it and figuring it out and knowing we've got to keep the pie the same. But that pie, it's been balanced. Those rocks are on the new people. That's where most of the weight is coming. And I understand why, because people that aren't here can't fill the room. They can't advocate for them because they're not here yet. And I'm going to advocate for the Buncombe County for the future as well as the present. I will advocate for the present, but I'm also going to be thinking about how do we build our bench. I know y'all are thinking about that too, but it's important for this for you to know from this commissioner that my questions aren't about. There's no judgment on the performance of our current workforce. It is a concern I have about the future of our county. I'm going to still talk about it. And so, and I think y'all are there too. But once again, I think we can have a dialogue about it that will get us to a better place, that will get us to a healthier place, and we won't end up like California or some crazy things. But to shut down inquiry, or to somehow or another it to be interpreted like, you know, we're not committed because we ask questions. We have got to grow past that. We have got to grow past that. So the anchor institutions was really interesting. I'm all about the kind of the performance indicators as well, and I would love to understand more about like individual performance plans and learn just personally, like how are individual. What are the annual reviews like, and what's that? You know, what are the ups, what are the downs, and you know how to be supportive of that too. So that'd be great to get that information, you know, as a follow up. But at the end of the day, you know, I think it's going to be really a valuable contribution to our decisions going forward. And I've said it every time I've brought this up, and I'll say it again. I value greatly the people's performance in this room, and every one of them. But I also will support the citizens that are with the average income in this county of $25,000. That's the average income of our citizens. An average household median income for a household, $44,000. We have got to hold all that intention and make sure those ambulances are filled. And I was concerned when we kind of had those caps on entry pay, and y'all fixed that quick when you realized we couldn't get those early responders. You fixed it. So I get it. And how we can get to a better place, I would really be open to being a part of that. But we've got to be open to finding, you know, ways that we can improve, but also ways the importance of the things that we can retain. So
you said a lot, but I'd like to.
There was a lot said to respond
absolutely.
to. Yeah.
So but I want to make sure that I hit. I'm trying to make sure I hit the main points. So I guess the first thing I want to say is that the thing I love and cherish about my job is the fact that I work in an environment where people strongly question each other and push and pull on the decisions that we make. To me, that is the crux of why I come to work every day, because it makes me a stronger person, and it makes me ultimately be a part of a team that makes good, strong decisions. So I always welcome that kind of input. What's difficult for me as a staff member is when there's not a careful strategic analysis of a situation that allows for us to look at the multifaceted factors affecting that situation. And yes, in a perfect world, a 30-day waiting period for health insurance benefits would be excellent. But the cost of that, when you look at that single pie, would significantly affect the taxes that an elderly person in this community would pay. So we have to balance those things, and we have to look at what we have in this community in a way that's intentional and mindful and comprehensive. That's the kind of conversation I would welcome to have with anyone in this community, any citizen, as well as any commissioner. And I think I speak for any employee in Buncombe County. So I'm happy to meet with you offline and give you more information as well and have that dialogue. But I think that the important thing is that we make things that are strategic in nature. We made those decisions about the tiered system. It wasn't a perfect decision, but it was a strategic decision given the economic downturn. Hopefully, with an upswing, we can adjust that as we've done in the past and bring those workers back up to a level that's comparable and that retains them ultimately, so that we're not paying those high turnover costs. So,
I totally think that's a good idea. I mean, probably a middle ground of the three tiers, but Anyway, I'll stop there, and we can respond to the report that will come forth August the 7th in 2012.
All right, any other questions or comments? We have a budget that has been presented. We may have some amendments on that. I would recommend that we proceed discussion of the budget and then have a separate motion after we adopt that on the amendments, if that's agreeable with the board. Does that sound all right?
Sure.
Okay, then let's, is there a motion to adopt the budget as it has been presented?
So move.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion by Commissioner Peterson, a second by Vice Chair Stanley. Is there any comment about the budget that is before us right now?
My only comment is, and I can't even believe I've got the nerve to bring this up, but I know that y'all pull it off every year in terms of the comment that really got my attention the most the last 2 weeks was, and it was in the environment of the whole firefighter raise thing, and I understand that in this budget there are no raises in the budget, and you only get the raises unless they're saved. And I know y'all do it every year. I know it. But that actually does bother me. I mean, I feel like, I know I'm like persona non grata with everybody in this room, but that, I feel like to not specifically say that whatever the average CPI would have been for the last 2 or 3 years is probably a pretty good indicator of what the number will be this year. And to go ahead and put it in there feels to me like the right thing to do as an employer, as opposed to saying, even with that great track record, and let me just repeat it one more time, I know y'all do it every year, but I think that is part of being transparent and clear, is saying we have budgeted for raises and they're in the budget. So that's actually the part right now, ironically, that gives me the most heartburn about this budget, because I feel 99.9% sure that it's going to work out and that the CPI we'll be able to do those raises in April, but it's not in there, right? I mean, is that what you told me last time?
It's not in there. We don't know what that is until we get probably end of January, 1st of February, and then we do those raises in April. We're happy to come back and tell you exactly what that is, and if you want to appropriate fund balance at that point in time, we'll adjust all the all the department's budgets. But to do it now is putting money into budgets that we really would like to keep safe and secure so that we're able to do those raises.
Once again, the ultimate irony, but I do feel like, particularly for those folks at the lower tiers that aren't going to get the bonuses that are kind of act like additional compensation in the course of the year, for those 600 and folks, well, mainly those ones at those 150 at the bottom, a raise in the budget's really all they got.
Well,
So,
and they would get that raise when we know what CPI is.
but it's technically not budgeted. I just want to flag my
I hear you.
heartburn around that, because I do feel that's also about being a good employer and being transparent too. So I don't know what the numbers look like next year. I would be more comfortable next year is factoring that in to the overall budget, to kind of be more forthright about that for our employees. But anyway, I know you've got a great track
Well,
record.
and if you want to budget a contingency, it'd take about $1.1 million to have a similar raise to what we had last year. That's certainly something we can do in holding contingency, would come out of the fund balance.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
We would like to make any amendments that you want to make before we actually adopt the budget, so that it's in the ordinance if possible.
Okay. All right, so we've got, then let's do a
Mr.
friendly amendment on the motion that I saw on the floor now.
Okay. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion that we add the following to the FY 2013 budget. For Asheville Green Works, $8,625. For the ARC, $3,000. For Habitat for Humanity, $100,000, and would encourage Habitat to apply for funding, further funding through Buncombe County's Affordable Housing Service Program. Appalachian Sustainable Agriculture, ASAP, $20,000. Asheville Art Museum, $100,000.
All right, there's been a motion. Is there a second to that friendly amendment to the original budget motion?
Second.
Okay. So I take it it's a friendly amendment for you too. Okay, so we got that. Any discussion of those amendments or the main budget item?
Well, I would just want to say that I'm supportive of those amendments, but I would also be hopeful that there was a way that the Asheville Art Museum would return as well, for us to kind of continue to be supportive of that important effort. And also, we'll throw out there for next year potentially a different process for outside agencies to make their request for funds and make their pitch. So I'd be happy to be part of that type of thinking going forward.
Okay, I have a few comments, and I would like to address primarily employees. I've had the honor of going around to each department several times since I've been in office. I've had the chance to go meet many of you. I've had the chance to see what you do, to try to understand when we do a budget, what it is that the employees of Buncombe County do for the people of Buncombe County. I know that since I've been on this board, we have consistently asked you to do more with less. Less people, less asset, and you come through. And I appreciate that. Everybody in Buncombe County appreciates that. Since I've been on the board, I've had one pretty standing order with Mr. Thornberry and Dr. Green, and that's that every budget I vote on, I want to see an increase for the employees, because there's nothing out there that costs less this year than it did last year. And to support our employees, they have to get an increase. And I will tell you that as long as I'm on this board, we will fairly compensate you. We will keep our promises to you, whether we make them or prior boards have made them. And I'm going to support this budget. I want to thank Mr. Clint for talking to us, Mr. Gorman talking about what you feel. I think I heard saw a lot of heads nodding out there, and I appreciate you articulating the feelings of Buncombe County employees. And I thank you in particular, but I thank you all jointly, because we can do more with less. We can get a AAA bond rating. We can do these things because of what you do. I'd love to say it's what I do. I have nothing to do with it except for set policy. That's my job. But you are on the ground floor, and I can't tell you how proud I am of Buncombe County employees and everything you've done for our people. Because they're our people, they're your neighbors, and they're the people we're elected to serve, and you are asked to serve through your employment. And I thank you for that, and I support this budget and the amendments we've talked about. Thank you. Any other comments?
Just so you'll know what this does to the budget, Diane's going to summarize the new functions.
The additional funding you've instructed us to include tonight changes the FY 2013 budget ordinance as follows. Human Services function changes to $77,730,059. The Economic and Physical Development function changes to $11,046,000 and $826. Culture and Recreation, $7,503,144, and then the fund balance changes to $8,147,972, and that changes the total general fund budget to $266,399,941.
Okay, any questions for Diane about the changes that she has articulated?
You know, I got so wrapped up in the personnel stuff, I forgot to ask one budget question. So where did the $400,000 reduction of fund balance? That's great. That's great news. Where did that come from?
We budgeted the revenue that we will receive from the city for Linamar.
Oh, okay.
Any other comments or questions about this budget ordinance as amended?
My comment before we vote, and it will be very short, and that is to thank the management team and the finance department and all the departments who had a part in putting this budget together. And it's great to see what such a fine-looking group of county employees here today. It makes me very proud to be a small part of this group. And the citizens of Buncombe County are really the ones who value you and who are rewarded for the good work you do. And I thank you for being here. It's quite special.
This, I think this is my 24th budget and my last one, too. And Clint, I remember when you and I both had a little more hair, and I remember coming to, going down Biltmore Avenue, and I heard this young man say, "I got a pulse." But I was getting ready to go downtown and sign $1 million contract to buy that honky-tonk I used to have over there, and signed a contract for it. And I passed out, I guess. I had a little something. But I had to go to the hospital, but Clint rode me over there. "I'm glad you did the good job, young fellow." I made it. But it was a nice word when he said, "I got a pulse." I thought that sounded pretty good to me. Pretty good. But this is a milestone for me. It's the last budget I've done. When I came on this board, our tax rate was 82.5 cents. It's 52.5 now. I think that's a 30-cent decrease, though we've been hollering at for years. I believe that's a decrease in the budget. Of course, we've had some revals, but I don't think we have directly in my 24 years actually raised taxes. We didn't do anything like that, and I'm kind of proud of that. But I too am proud of all y'all, particularly our staff here. And I want you to know I was part of that AAA bond rating team. Somebody had to show them where where they go to meetings. But it's been a great ride for me, and I will always be proud of you. Thank you.
Any other comments? I'll call a question. All those in favor of the budget ordinance as amended, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The budget is adopted by a 5-0 vote. Thank you very much.
Hallelujah, brother.
Next up, we have the Waste Pro increase request. Who will be doing that one? Mike, why don't you just, can you just, I think it required a second reading. I guess we talked about it last time.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, this is the second reading on the motion and vote of 2 weeks ago. So it is just simply a matter of having a second vote because pursuant to general statute, no franchise ordinance amendment is effective unless it passes at two regular meetings.
To approve the 4% increase.
I'll second.
It's been a motion by Vice Chair Stanley, a second by Commissioner Bailey. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, no.
No.
No. The vote is 3-2 approval, Gant and Peterson against. Thank you. New business, we have Sonia Frederick with the Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee report. As I recognize Sonia in our opening, she served on many county boards, and this is the latest of a career of service to the county. And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This is the 2011-2012 report. It gets so confusing when we get ready to give a report. Okay, what did I say last time? But all of our 19 homes have been visited and served. Our volunteers have put in 311 hours, 2,306 miles, and of course have completed 76 visits. Now, I think those numbers are probably a little low. We have found out some of our volunteers are not too crazy about filling out, old forms and don't put down their hours and their travel. For the education question, Roxanne Sizemore from the Adult Protective Services came to us and alerted us about the abuse and exploitation of seniors in nursing homes. It's not only those who are living alone that we do need to look out for. And then Terry Collins, our regional ombudsman, led us through 2 different meetings going over the 17 residents' rights. You know, it's easy to just think about 3 or 4 of them and not be aware of some of the other rights that we need to be watching for. And then Renee Wilkie, Fletcher's business office assistant, showed us the procedures on residents' personal funds. Our first quarter community involvement was first quarter focus on dental care. And that means that we all ask the same questions of our homes as we visit them. And you have it in more detail. I'm just going to say briefly that some of the homes have arrangements with a dentist who come to the home every 4 to 6 weeks with all of their equipment and check the residents. Some of those dentists will actually do extractions and fillings and things at the home. Others, after they check them, set up appointments for the people to come in. A couple of our homes have the DSS service come to the facility every 6 months. And one home has a private provider that comes every 6 months. Other of our homes are still making appointments with private dentists. Some of the homes have people that, you know, would really prefer to go back to their private dentist, and so the home provides transportation. All of the billing is done to the residents direct or to their insurance. For emergencies, 4 of those providers will return and actually handle the emergency there in the home. One home has a public provider for emergencies, but then the resident must be taken there. And again, the rest rely on getting an appointment with a local dentist. And of course, they're doing some palliative care in the meantime. There's nothing worse than an abscessed tooth. For the community, we gave a scholarship to a Nashville High senior who has plans to enter medical school. We did sponsor a grant competition among our nursing homes, and the focus of it was to improve the quality of life of the residents. And Aston Park won our grant for a strolling sensory enrichment cart. And the administrator came to one of our meetings and told us about this cart, and it has all kinds of things, different fabrics, zippers, bells, so that people get stimulated who, you know, are not functioning at full value. And they also have music on that cart, and that is something that all of the residents have enjoyed. Our problems with this group is not enough staff. We hear that every time just about that we go, not only from the residents themselves, but from their family members. Of course, there'll be comments about the food, the attitude of staff, and the time it takes for call bells to be answered. We then go over those complaints with the administrators when we leave. And I do want to stress that our homes are meeting the staffing requirements that the legislature has set, but it still appears that the daily cycle of a nursing home, we could use more. We have, as a committee, some difficulty getting and keeping volunteers, and we certainly appreciate the 3 that have just been certified, and we're looking forward to getting them involved. Our major grievances this year, we did not have any. We've actually kind of clarified that. If there's a major grievance, because our focus is residents' rights, And if there's a grievance about medication or being transferred when someone doesn't want to be, we call in the ombudsman and assist with them if there's something that can be done. The strengths of our homes, they're clean, they're well-managed facilities, and with mostly caring staffs. The weaknesses, well, again, I would say the staffing ratio. And here we are with, having met the requirements, but yet it still basically is not enough, especially on weekends. We even make some of our visits on weekends so that we can see for ourselves. We thank you for continuing to help us recruit volunteers, and we always would love to have more who would enjoy visiting some of our friendly senior citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Good job.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Minnie Jones Health Clinic update and lease renewal, and we have Mandy Stone going to tell us about that with Carlos Gomez, the director.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity to bring you the lease for action tonight and also provide an update. Well, I'm going to provide the bulk of the presentation. I would note, as the chairman did earlier, that Minnie Jones, the founder, is here with us, the founding board member, Mr. Venable, who
Let's give her a hand.
Oh,
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
who represents them legally, and Mr. Gomez, who is their CEO and president. And Judy, if you'll bring up the PowerPoint, before we asked you to act on the lease, we did just want to give an overall update. Again, reminding you that under the overall umbrella of Western North Carolina Community Health Services is the Minnie Jones Health Center, as well as the work they do regionally around HIV services, Housing Works, and integrated health care. I think I actually have to do this myself. Sorry. All right, Judy, maybe you're going to have to do it. You can do it, too. I do want to go back and just remind you a little bit of the history that we were providing primary care in-house in our health department, doing an excellent job. But we reached a crisis point where we were unable to meet the demand, turning away about 300 individual calls a month. We cost out what it would mean for the county to increase services to address that need, and it would have been, at that time, about $2 million. We began working with a broad-based community safety net involving the hospital and other providers to talk about a long-range strategy. And one of the first things we agreed on, as had been a part of the service we delivered at the health center, is that we believe primary care should be an integrated model that also addresses dental health and behavioral health issues. So did just want to begin with that. Also wanted to say, as all of the boards of commissioners that I've had the honor to work with have always done, we were issued very clear directives, and if I could just paraphrase those, it was do more with less, do it better, achieve better health outcomes, make sure it's the most cost-efficient model out there in terms of research-based national models, and make sure we decrease the cost to our taxpayers when people inappropriately used our emergency department. As always, commissioners were very clear that we are concerned with the citizens that we serve as well as the taxpayers who fund our services, and that's a balance we needed to maintain. So those were the very easy expectations you set out for us. Again, talking about where we began, the health center, their last year's service served about 9,100 patients. I want to make a very important distinction, though. Only about 6,500 of those were adults, and I make that distinction because one thing we knew as a safety net in a community is we are blessed with a very strong pediatric care network in our community. Pediatric practices willing to see Medicaid children and winches who already had a mission to see those not covered. So we really felt like as we move forward in an outsourcing environment that we wanted to focus on adults because that's where taxpayers carried the greatest burden around indigent care. And that's what had the greatest impact on our community sustainability, be it impact on social services or the jails or public health or community health. So moving on to the first year of our contract, we contracted for 10,000 unduplicated patients, and winches served 13,248. Again, want to note in that slide that 11,000 of those were adults. That constitutes almost a 70% increase in adult access in our community. This year that we are ending, 13,561 patients served at winches, 11,935 of those adults. And one of my very favorite slides, we were serving those 9,000 unduplicated patients at a county cost of $4.5 million. We are now serving 13,561 county residents at a cost of $2.3 million. So that was in direct response to your deliverable that we reduce county dollars and we reduce the burden on our taxpayers.
You mind saying that slide again?
Yeah, I can say it in my sleep. We were serving 9,100 adults unduplicated patients for $4.5 million. We are now serving 13,561 with a 70% increase in adults being served at a cost of $2.3 million.
Thank you, Mandy.
That's a direct reflection of winches and their work. Also, might become my favorite slide, which Carlos kind of surprised me with. We always had the focus, because you asked us to do that, on providing integrated care to those highest cost, most needy adults in our community, meaning that we really wanted to impact those where taxpayers carry the burden should they show up and inappropriately use the emergency department, ambulance services, mental health or behavioral health services. And that winches, we began looking at how can we track that, and really found that nationally it really was not being tracked in any of the model programs. Carlos has done a tremendous job focusing on that and tracking it, and we'll tell you that we are serving 96% of the individuals we are serving are at 100% or less or federal poverty. The other 4% out of 200% of federal poverty. That means we are serving those in greatest financial need with the greatest health care needs. And that is such a great reflection on the very focused strategic work of winches in this process. Also, one of your directives was to leverage non-county funding. When in the health department, we were talking about $4.5 million county dollars. So again, looking at the current payer rate, and what's important and why we chose moving forward in a partnership with an FQHC is the federal government designs federally qualified health clinics to be able to serve the indigents by paying them full cost reimbursement for Medicare and Medicaid. That reimbursement is not available to any other provider. When an FQH does that, they're able to then leverage care for the uninsured, and that's a breakdown of that population. So then you also said to us, do more, do it for less money, and do it better. And this is a comparison of winches' health outcomes, which we measure as a part of this performance-based contract compared to national average. You'll see that they're doing better with both hypertension patients and diabetes patients, some of the two more costly patients to serve to our hospital system and our overall healthcare system. They do better in both of those categories than the national average. These are just 2 of 27 health outcomes that we measure as a part of this performance-based contract, but 2 that are very important to the community. To also look at how cost efficiently care is delivered, again a reflection on winches. If you look at their cost per visit on both a medical and a behavioral health, in both of those elements, it's below the national average. And at the next slide, you'll see if you look at that cost per patient, it's also below the national average. Again, speaks to the high quality and the efficiency of the FQHC model and how well winches has done in that model. I wanted to talk just briefly before I talked about very quickly the lease agreement, that we have two separate contracts with winches that were part of us moving forward, aligning ourselves as we always do, what we know is happening on a federal and state level, wanting to move forward with comprehensive medical home model, and we are actually piloting this model for the state. We transitioned prenatal health from the health department to winches. This represents a 6-month period of data, and again, just want to make the point that they are tracking to serve more individuals than we served at the health department, which is one of our outcomes for them, and also wanted you to see those actual outcomes that show that the women who are delivering live infants, the women who are receiving first prenatal appointments within 3 weeks of request, and actually our infant mortality rate are also moving in an upward positive way as a result of that contract. So I wanted to point that out. You know, I think it's important that once we built a contractual partnership relationship with winches, we looked at other opportunities to expand community capacity and built on those. A separate additional contract we have with winches is for dental health, which we also used to provide at the health center. I will tell you that these are the individuals who received dental services at winches in 2011. That compares to about 2,100 that we were serving at the health department when we transitioned this service. And that the total number of dental visits and the procedures completed are also track at a higher rate than when we were delivering that service. And I want to talk a little bit about the lease. Again, just reminding you, which I know you are aware of, that 257 Biltmore was one of the mental health properties that came to us at the point of the divestiture of mental health in North Carolina. This board passed a resolution at that time assuring that those assets remain dedicated to the delivery of mental health services. 257 is certainly being used in that vein, since a large component of the services that winches provides for us is not only that integrated model, but they also serve our highest risk populations. They take discharges from the jail, discharges from Broughton, the ED diversions. They do all of that work, which for the community are some of those highest risk, highest cost individuals. The current lease agreement is for $1 a year. We are asking you to allow us to continue that, and in exchange for that, in FY13, winches will provide us with 1,500 new patients. This was actually a recommendation that came from Commissioner Bailey early on, is that when we had the opportunity to look at the building and how we would eventually dispose of the building, that could we buy additional care as a result of that. And in FY14, in exchange for maintaining that current lease agreement, this is no different than our current agreement, that they would see an additional 1,500 new patients for a total increased access of 3,000 new patients over those 2 years. And just to give you an idea, because I think we always are focused on both the compassionate and efficient delivery of services as well as cost efficiency for our taxpayers, should we increase their rate of the lease, that would generate for us $57,500 in FY13, and because we have an escalator in the actual potential lease agreement, that would increase to $115,000 in FY14. But I'd ask you to flip and look at that on the other side, that the value of increasing patient load by 3,000 patients over those same 2 years has a value of $1 million. So we would be trading $172,000 in rent, which we would have to turn around because the resolution prior passed by this board and reinvest in behavioral health, for $1 million in new care to our most needy and highest cost individuals in our community. And that is our recommendation. And I, or Ms. Jones, or Mr. Venable or Mr. Gomez are happy to answer any questions.
Great job.
So, Mandy, we're serving 3,000 more patients than when the health department did it.
Yes.
And you're saying with this lease, we're going to pick up another 3,000 in addition to that because of because we continue a $1 lease.
That's accurate.
So we'll pick up 6,000 new patients before.
Beyond what the health department was serving, for about half, a little less than half the money.
Wow, okay.
Well, it's a great job, but with a name like Miss Minnie Jones, you would have to succeed. That lady is nothing but success. She'll make it go.
Any questions for Mr. Gomez? Oh, he sat down. Or myself?
I just wanted to make one comment, because I was concerned about all the prenatal shift over. I had a lot of heartburn about that, but I really appreciate y'all taking my concerns, and it looks like y'all have really done a bang-up job with that. One quick follow-up, that the slide showed terrific indicators listed. I think you also referenced an improvement from where we were, from what it was before, but that wasn't part of what was demonstrated there, but you just know that from knowing the data.
The
correct?
trending is improving, and that's a part of and that contract's actually managed by Gabby Harris. That's a part of her outcomes is
Right.
improvement in those areas, which was an area you asked us to pay attention to.
right.
We also outsource some of the case management service. Meaning we moved them or outposted them to 257, and access to WIC, as well as access to public assistance benefits. Another area you were concerned about is that medical home could be maintained and even expanded in that environment, and that has happened. Those services are available on site at 257 now as well. So I'm happy to send you the specific data
That-
on the prenatal.
That's terrific, and the MAHEC relationship continues to
Oh, yeah,
go great, and everybody.
they are continuing to have conversations, and I can let Carlos talk about that. He'd probably rather talk about it himself.
At this point, we're continuing to, at MAHEC's request, to develop a stronger relationship with them, to particularly in light of healthcare reform, which of course is hanging in the air even as we speak. But assuming that the law stays in place, or most of the law stays in place, it would probably be very beneficial for both MAHEC as a residency program and for us to work together as a teaching health center, so that they could possibly increase the dollars that come for resident education to the community.
That's
But
great.
that's going to also come to community health centers.
Great job, thanks.
Just to follow up on what Carlos said, those conversations are happening with MAHEC and Winches in the county and Mission. And there is a commitment that should that result in additional reimbursements, those dollars would directly be reinvested as we'd done in expanded capacity in the
Nice.
community.
That's fantastic.
I don't think Minnie's going to let me speak for her. She's going to speak for herself.
Yes, she does.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to thank y'all. First of all, I want to clear something, because last time I was here, there was some problems about if we could do the job, if we was fit to do the job, if we was going to do the job. So I want to know, did you get any complaints? Has anybody had any complaints? Sometimes, people will tell some people something that they won't tell others. So, Miss Jones, I'll send this to you because I think it was you and out of ice time. Have you had any problems with me? So I want to know if you have, and so me and you could work it out. But I want to thank everybody that cares about Buncombe County and the surrounding counties that we serve. I get calls every day. I got a call yesterday where a lady had a bad tooth. We're going to take care of that lady. And we do this all the time. I want to just thank y'all for what you're doing. Appreciate you. It is going to give us a little bit of cut because we are doing more than you asked us to do, and that could cost y'all some money if I decide to ask you to pay for that. So, but I think we could work it out. I think we can work it out, and I want to thank my boss, Mr. Bailey, over there. It was my teacher. I want to thank him for seeing that we do need this kind of service in this area. It's not getting better, it's getting worse. Some of you don't know what I'm talking about, but I live with it. I sleep in it. I know what's happening. And we just need to do more They say we need to do more with less, but we do have to come to a point that you can't just do but so much with less. That have to happen too. But I want to thank all of you, and I want to especially thank my friend here who's fixing to leave us. And I hope and pray, and they say you can't talk praying here, but I talk pray anywhere I go. And so that I hope we can get somebody that can be at least half as good. I know we won't get nobody as good. That's not going to ever happen. But maybe we can get somebody half as good. I hope that will happen. So I guess that's all I have to say. I just want to thank y'all. And if there's anything that I can do to help any further than what we're doing, everybody knows my number. Everybody knows me all over the world. So just give me a call.
Thank you, Ms. Minnie.
Before anybody changes their mind, I'd like to make a motion that we accept this, that we pass this resolution.
Second.
Okay, it's been a motion by Commissioner Peterson, a second by Vice Chair Stanley to adopt the proposed lease renewal under the terms outlined by Ms. Stone. Is there any discussion?
I just have one quick question for Ms. Stone. So this is kind of a part different from the kind of the annual updates that we'll get around outcomes. This is we'll still get that, right?
You will
I mean,
you
so-
will still get
yeah,
that,
This
yes.
is just the lease piece of it.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The new lease is renewed as discussed by a 5-0 vote. Thank you. And thank you. Reason I'm so impressed with Ms. Jones, at a time nobody took care of folks with AIDS, this lady had a vision that someone needs to do that, and that's how this clinic got started.
Exactly.
And we appreciate that, and I know that you went out on a limb back then when nobody else wanted to do anything, and we took some bad whoopings. I know you did. All right, thank you very much, and thanks for all you do. Next up, we have a resolution authorizing the county manager to apply for NC water quality funds, and we have Dr. Green talk about that.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, over the last several years, you, the Commission, has done everything in your power attempting to mitigate the exposures and the risk to the residents that are living in the old CTS facility, the area around that plant in Mills Gap. And even though it didn't fit our policy, we've always been focused on trying to find a solution and looking for opportunities to help resolve some of the issues they have there. It's come to our attention that there is a funding source with the North Carolina Division of Water Quality where you can apply for a 20-year interest-free loan to put in water lines. And what I'm asking you to do is to let us do that for the 115 homes that are currently monitored by EPA in that area. If we get the loan, we will have to survey the residents to see who wants the water lines, and if they accept the water lines, they have to cap their wells. That will be part of the water quality issue. We've worked with the city of Asheville to get an estimate for the full cost of building these lines, and that estimate, they brought it up to date for me a couple of weeks ago, is $3,950,000. There's some risk associated with it. The first payment would be due, the payments are always due in May, but it's due the May that's 6 months after the project's complete. So the first payment would not be due until May of 2014. So there's a couple of things in doing this I'd like to ask. One is to authorize me to apply for the loan, the interest-free loan, and then to instruct the county attorney to work with EPA to recover those funds from CTS and work very diligently. CTS right now they've been willing to put in filtering systems in some of these homes, and I think 50 people have signed up for that. But we think they ought to have a choice if they want water lines or the filtering system. We do have to apply for the grant. It may be September before we know if we get the grant, but we're working with the city so they can be ready to go if in the event we get it. And we'll work with the local delegation to see if we can push it a little bit faster. There is risk. I mean, if we can't recover it from CTS, it's a 20-year interest-free loan on basically $4 million. But if you would authorize me to apply for that loan, we'll need a resolution signed by you, and then the attorney will work with EPA and Diener and to try to recover these funds.
Mr. Chairman, before I forget it, I move we authorize the county manager to seek that money and get it.
Yes, sir.
Let's get that done. That's been a long time coming. We need to get cracking.
Second that motion. I think it's another example of the fact that our folks see a need and go after whatever solution is available to meet that need, be it the Minnie Jones Clinic and the fact that a lot more folks are being seen there for health needs, or whether it's the people who have have a situation out here at CTS that we go after the need and we try to meet it. So I second that motion.
All right, it's been a motion and a second. I live out that way. I've talked to you. I've been to many meetings with you. You need regular water. Filter's not enough, and CTS needs to pay for it.
That's why I like go get it from them after we get it. But let's get the money and get it done. They'll hee-haw around like they have for the last 10 years.
Okay.
Okay,
Call
very
for the
good.
question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The resolution authorizing the county manager to apply for funds and to go after CTS as best we can through our county attorney has passed 5-0. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, and talking to the attorney, we have the city of Asheville needs an easement, and we did not get that added to the agenda, so Mr. Frew needs to talk to you about that.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we need to help our friends over at the city. They've been working for a while to get some loans to repair City Hall and some other improvements. Down below the City County Plaza area at Marjorie Street, the city has used as access to their downstairs garage and also access to HVAC across about 65 feet of county property, and it's been used as such since anyone can remember. It's currently an exception to their title insurance policy, so we just ask that if you direct the county manager, by with my approval, to work with the city to get an easement across that property to service that entryway off Marjorie Street, and we can make that happen, and the city doesn't have to keep waiting on us to clear up their title insurance policy issues.
So move.
Second.
It's been a motion by Commissioner Peterson, a second by Commissioner Jones. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next up, we have board appointments. We have to appoint a replacement for Robin Cape on the Woodfin Water District. Are there any nominations?
Chairman, I would nominate Joseph Maliski.
Mr. Maliski's been nominated. Any other nominations?
I'll nominate Ms. Walker.
Joan Walker has been nominated. Any other nominations? All right. All those in favor of Mr. Maliski, say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor of Ms. Walker, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Malinsky is appointed 3-2. Agriculture Advisory Board for Farmland Preservation, we have 6 vacancies. We have 4 reappointment possibilities.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Jerry Roberts, Chase Hubbard, Margaret Duckett, John Ager, and Mitchell Crowell. Michael Crowell.
Okay, are there any other nominations? So those are 5 of the 6 spots. We still have a spot. Is that any classification or restriction on that? Just open seat? So we have one more seat after that. Any other nominations? All those in favor of Roberts, Hubbard, Duckett, Ager, and Kroll, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Those individuals are appointed. Asheville Airport Authority.
Chairman, I'd like to nominate Jeff Picarella.
Mr. Picarella has been nominated. Any other nominations? And I will say, as a member of that board, the General Assembly is discussing whether to change the composition of that board. My term has just expired, and the bill that's pending before General Assembly is to not appoint any elected officials. Mr. Picarella's term is also up, and he is experienced, and the director asked that he be reappointed. Any other nominations? All those in favor of Mr. Picarillo, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Mr. Picarillo is reappointed for a 2nd term. Current vacancies, Montreat Board of Adjustment, there's 1 vacancy from the ETJ. Montreat Planning and Zoning, 1 vacancy from the ETJ. ETJ is the extraterritorial jurisdiction. It's a mile around the city that is basically a no man's land. It's an area that the cities have a right to expand, or used to have a right. I don't know if they have that right anymore, do they?
I'm not sure that bill has passed, but it's certainly.
But I know it was questionable. At any rate, that's what exists now, and there's a vacancy there for that that we appoint because it's outside their jurisdiction technically. Historic Resource Commission, we have 2 vacancies, and I think we just mentioned the Ag Advisory Board for Farmland Preservation has 1 vacancy. Announcements: the next regular board meeting will be August 7, beginning at 4:30. Commissioner meetings can be seen on BCTV Channel 2, ATT Uverse Channel 99, live on buncombecounty.org during the meetings, or online anytime at buncombecounty.org. Mr. Frew, do we have a public? I think you indicated there was no need for a closed session tonight.
Correct. No closed session tonight.
All right, well, we're ready for public hearing, public comment. The official business of the county has been concluded and will now hold public comment. The time limit to speak to the board is 3 minutes. If your time expires, you can leave your question with your name, address, phone number, or email with the county manager. Board members are not expected to comment on matters during public comment. Comments should be limited to subjects that are within the jurisdiction of the Buncombe County Commission and pertain to matters upon which we may act. Any individual speaking during public comment shall address the entire board. Any polling of board members is inappropriate. Persons addressing the board are expected to observe the decorum of the chamber and be respectful of everybody in the room. Any person who willfully interrupts, disrupts the session will be asked to leave the meeting, and the board reserves the right to deny public address on any subject previously presented to the board. Public comment. Anyone public comment? Mr. Yelton?
Don Yelton, I don't think I got my question answered about the building on Victoria Road, if it was going to be used as is and not torn down. And I would like to suggest, and I saw Wanda adding her head, so that's good, because that makes it fit our plan of sustainability. I'd like to know how much the sustainability plan cost. I would like to know who did it and how much other work they've done for the county. And I think we had a good topic tonight talking about kicking people to the curb. Yes, the citizens of Buncombe County have to pay the bill, and they have to pay the bill for everything. And if they have to pay the bill for the insurance and pay raises and merit raises and also providing service to everybody, you're kicking them to the curb. And they don't want to be kicked to the curb either. And when you do, they will strike back. The average citizen, just like with a school teacher, I've got some friends that are school teachers. They're making more money now that they're retired than they did when they were working. It's known throughout the nation. The average government worker makes anywhere from 20 to 35% more than the private sector. When they retire, guess what? They get good retirement, and yet we have to hire a replacement. So not only are we getting one time, we're getting double dipped for that one outcome in that one job. So no wonder the cost of government's increasing. So you really got to do more with less. I want to thank you very much, each member of this board. Can you believe that, David? I'm thanking you for what you said about CTS. And Wanda, I love the passion you said that you want to go after the corporation to pay that back, because they should pay it back, because it's been 25 years, Bill, not 20 but 10, but 25 years since that was first spotted out there in the spring. And it's been booted back and forth from the county planning department to everybody in the world, and finally this has got to be done. And when you run those lines, be sure you go by houses, let other people tap on that want to tap on too, and make the line big enough. And you might want to suggest, and this is a technical proposition, that they don't cap the wells. You might want to work on that. I know they say they want them to cap them, but you might want to be sure they're locked so that they can't use the water. But you leave them open, because if they decide to remove the source, which eventually they may have to do because it's going to just spread out and dilute till it stops, you could use those wells to monitor the movement, so it will save you cost in analyzing the movement. So you might want to talk to your experts about that, because it will save you money. And thank you very much for doing it.
Thank you, Mr. Yelton. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Wood.
Hi, I'm Michelle Pacewood from Candler. I want to reiterate again, CTS. I think it's great. I like your decision on longevity, but I'm really here tonight. Thank you for your service. To bring you back to business one more time. In December 2011, I came and spoke to you about a need for ordinances that address aggressive panhandling, loitering by cars, and fundraising in rights of way. And I know you've had a lot on your plate. In the meantime, it's still an ongoing issue out in the rural areas of the county. We don't have those ordinances on our books, so please, if you have time, take a look at what I submitted during the, I think it was December 6th meeting, and see if you can't give us some relief out there and some tools for the law enforcement to address some of the issues we're seeing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Any further comment tonight? Yes, ma'am. Landis and then Dittmeyer.
I am Reverend Lisa Landis. I do have to admit, yeah, it's about time. It's about time that something was done. I'm sorry to hear that it did have to take 25 years in order to get it done. I wonder sometimes why people are leaders and what they're leading. Tomorrow's the summer solstice. I don't know how many of you pay attention to what's going on Mother Earth, but we have a summer solstice tomorrow. And then we also have a World Prayer Day. I really don't care what people say, but I like to say my prayers. And I have a Father in heaven and a Mother on earth, and she's really upset. So we're going to see a whole lot more earth changes, and that's some of the things I talked about when I did have public access. And, you know, where is the media? I wonder what the media's role is in society today, because they only cover what they want to cover. And I had come before you and I had said that I was targeted and I was falsely arrested. And it took a jury of 12 of my peers less than 10 minutes to decide that I was not guilty. And I'm very grateful that Citizen Times did a great story, because it was honest reporting. Unfortunately, WLOS and Mountain Express felt that my guilt was worth more news ratings than my not guilty plea. And you know, when I was prosecuted by the Buncombe County DA with evidence that Sergeant Brown testified did not support those first two charges of disorderly conduct and resisting a police officer. And I have filed an investigation of, you know, what's going on, because I see it as a continued attack on my First Amendment rights, that the people are trying to silence the people. It's become an us and them. It's become a government versus the people, and that should not be, because our government is supposed to be of the people, for the people, and by the people. And by putting such big price tags on what your worth is really devaluing what the people are worth. You know, when you're talking about, you know, kicking people to the curb, you know, it was someone who was part of you who said that, you know, that devalues a person. And it's like, you know, we have all these homeless, and you act as if the homeless have no value. Well, why can't we get a piece of property and have the homeless, you know, grow some food so that we can support people? It's like, I wonder who the leaders are. And when we're talking about leaders and numbers, I still would like to see an itemized budget, because to me, the innovative financing is kind of like a criminal act, because I want to see numbers. Really, where are the numbers? Where do we find these numbers? We cannot just come up with a number. It has to be a sum of numbers. So if you can't give me a number for this budget, how about, as I asked the last time, last year's budget? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dittmeyer?
I'm Alan Dimmore of Leicester. I would have start, I was going to talk about other stuff, but I would have start by disagreeing strongly with this new panhandling ordinance proposal, that the only aggressive panhandling I've ever been subjected to is by fire departments. And the aggression came from the expectation, from having community expectations behind them. And communities are very intimidating to individuals. pretty inherently. And when impoverished people don't have a community expectation behind them, it's not intimidating and it's inherently not aggressive. Furthermore, I wasn't just lucky about never being intended. I don't believe it was luck. It's about American untouchables that people just like to kick around the weak. And if the weak ask for something, then it's an ego boost to push them around some more. That's what the motivation for this thing comes from. It's not real intimidation. Real intimidation happens with community backing, pretty much inherently. The other thing I'm going to point out is this idea of longevity pay. I think I'm going to go further than Holly has about it. That for one thing, in a computerized world, experience gained 20, 30 years ago isn't very relevant. The experience becomes obsolete inside of a decade. And second, there's only a few fields where 4 mediocre workers can't outperform 3 really talented workers. They can do almost any job, more of it, and do it better for less money. And we could just think about matching up the Asheville tourists against the World Series workers on the same salary, okay? Yeah, the World Series team, maybe they can pay their pitcher for 4 innings, and they can't pay anybody else. So you have a pitcher up there against the whole team. Now, who's going to win, the Asheville tourists or the World Series pitcher out there by himself? You have a triumph of numbers over talent most of the time, and this even applies to doctors. Which is the high-tech field where you least expect it, that most of the doctors have plenty of training, plenty of experience, but they make mistakes when they don't spend enough time with their patients. I.e., there aren't enough of them to put in enough time. And that's the least likely field. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Dittmeyer. Any other comments tonight?
You got one over there. Taking it back here.
Yes, ma'am. Come on up.
My name is Lori Murphy, and I'm one of the folks that's going to benefit by those city water lines that's going to go in. And I just wanted to say thank you all. What you're doing is, do it without crying. You're saving our lives. You're saving our health. You're going to increase our property values. We're going to be able to have fire hydrants real close to us, and we're not going to have to worry every time the EPA comes out to test. There's a 3-month waiting period. We won't have to have that anymore because we'll just be able to turn our faucets on and have clean water. And I just want to thank you all very much for that.
You do.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy.
Time we did it.
Any other public comment? Yes, sir. Alan? I'll go ahead. You free first, and I'll hear from her. You're first, sir.
My name's Aaron Penland. I'd like to say thank you also for what you're going to be doing with the water and getting it to the folks in the Arden area where the groundwater contamination is so bad. And it is still an ongoing spill that happened over 2 decades ago. As far as what Mr. Yelton said, he does make a lot of sense with saying instead of capping the wells, to secure them, because there will be more testing needs to be done. One thing that needs to be remembered is that it's not just water, it's also air vapors in the air. You know, there's houses that are in close proximity that do have issues with the vapors that they're breathing in. It's great to hear that water's coming, but one thing that a lot of people still would like to hear and like to see is the people that are responsible for this, as you indicated, going after for the money, but also to make sure that these people that did this, you know, make sure that there's justice in here for the people that have suffered, for the peoples that have tumors, the people that have gotten cancer, you know, make sure there's something for those people also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Penland. Yes, ma'am. Verma.
Chairman Gant, Commissioners, my name is Leanne Smith. I live in the Arden area, really close to the CTS site. I'm the mother of a childhood cancer survivor, and I am also a Buncombe County employee. I want to thank you so much for adopting this resolution tonight that will help safeguard water for people living near the CTS site in Arden. And I also think that you might be interested in some statistics regarding the municipal water lines that show support for this resolution. Not all of the surveys are in, but I thought you might want the data that we do have, Dr. Green, for you in particular. Out of approximately 129 wells in the area that EPA has either sampled quarterly for the past 3 years or has sampled at some point over the years, 70 so far have responded to our survey. And it's important to note here that some wells provide water for multiple homes. Regarding the municipal water lines, of the 70 who responded, 64 say that they would accept a municipal water line. That's just over a 91% acceptance rate. Only 6 property owners say that they do not want a water line, around 9%. That's so far of what we have in. And regarding the CTS-funded filtering systems that EPA is overseeing, 69 responses that we so far have in, of those, 61 have sent consent agreements to accept the filters. That's more than an 88% acceptance rate. 8 people declined, and of those 8, 5 want to remain on the monitoring network. Thank you again so much for advocating for the health and safety of my family, friends, and neighbors.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Any other public comment tonight? Mr. McQueen?
My name's Tate McQueen. I teach at Charles D. Owen High School. I have 2 children, ages 4 and 5, that are on a well. We have had contamination such as cyanide and chromium in my well. I live across the street from the Murphys. I've watched their well go dry. I do want to extend another expression of gratitude for bringing water to our curb. It really is to use a cliche, a watershed moment for us. The work is not over. Many of us have not been surveyed and would add our names to the city water lines. We're not interested in filters. We're not interested in kowtowing to a corporation. CTS Corporation is the responsible party for this. We also feel like that this is step 1 in a 4-step process. And I would be willing to bet you, Ms. Green, that you'll have plenty of help from our community in developing the strategies to go after the funds from CTS Corporation. But they would only do what they've been compelled to do by EPA officials. There are 4 officials that are currently under subpoena that have ignored the state subpoena to appear before the House Select Committee. And again, I would encourage you to look at this on a 4-pronged approach. Number 1, we needed the city water lines for safety. It's a basic safety issue, and it appears that we're going to get them. So thank you on behalf of my 2 children and my wife, who actually draw from a well. Thank you. Secondly, there is a vapor issue. I'd like to let you know that 92% of the homes that were tested by EPA in August of 2008, December 07, during those 2 sampling events for vapor, 92% had vapor issues. Many of those were in the lower phase of Southside Village. Terry Rice, who lives next door to the plant, whose property was stigmatized with a fraudulent, in our minds, fraudulent circular site. We talked about that last time I was here. I'm going to provide Mr. Frew and Sheriff Duncan some materials I think that they'll find interesting to disseminate with Ms. Green and others. The reality is that they have only done what they've been compelled to do. We have bad air. That needs to be taken care of on an emergency basis. Terry Rice's was at 48 times the cancer screening level in his crawl space in December 07. It was 16 times the cancer screening level in August 2008. So we have a vapor issue. We have the primary source. It's going to continue to be a problem. One of the things that we know is that in February, Dot Rice's property was sampled at 1,200 parts per billion to 1,300 parts per billion in their surface water. And where it's in the surface water, it'll volatilize, it gets in the air, people breathe it. People get much sicker, much faster from that. We've had 4 emergency events in my neighborhood alone since 2010. So we need that. We also need the accountability. We need the accountability for the officials that failed us, as well as CTS. They have worked in concert, and we're going to do everything we can to achieve primary source cleanup, vapor testing, and the accountability. And I appreciate what y'all have done for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McQueen. Any other comments tonight? Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We do have a great staff here in Buncombe County, and I've certainly advocated for pay raises and all for about 20 years myself for them. And I think they do a great job. Number two, CTS. It's long coming and a Band-Aid approach. I might be cynical in saying that, but when people get a water line run at the house, they think that it's all over. It's not. It could be just the beginning. There's more than 120 people that lives in that area, and they're going to be more and more affected as time goes on because this stuff goes a lot deeper. Not only that, but we have lots of other places in Buncombe County that we could name that is hazardous waste that people don't even know they're drinking. They don't have the money to test their wells. This is not an isolated incident in CTS community. This is all over Buncombe County. It needs to be a state problem that needs to be fixed, not covered up. We got word just this past week or two, past week, that Diener, they're going to start destroying records after 10 years. They'll only keep the 10-year records, and the rest of them going to be destroyed. So the fox sound like they're guarding a hen house. So people be aware. The other thing, we just heard a commissioner say that never had a tax increase. Well, I think that's pretty absurd. In 2006, we had a reevaluation of property at the height of the boom of building in Buncombe County. Then we supposed to have a reevaluation. We didn't have no reevaluation. Why? Because it would have lowered the values of property and it would cause the tax rate to go down. So therefore, we got a tax increase. If that's not a tax increase, you know, I went to Buncombe County School. I can do addition. 1 + 1 is 2. So I think we need to really look at this thing for the taxpayers. How in the world can we do more with less and then increase the budget by 1% and not give the taxpayers of Buncombe County a reduction? We brag about the county manager. We talk about the big salaries y'all make. We talk about the big salary she makes and all these other salaries. And with AAA bond rating, I'd say if we have done all this great work and with all this money that we're talking about, how in the name of God can you sit there and not give Buncombe County taxpayers a break? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Any other public comment tonight?
We adjourn.
Okay, motion. Motion by Commissioner Pearson, second by Commissioner Bailey. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.